Ευχαριστώ. Κυρία Werthmann.
Ευχαριστώ πολύ. Let me start with the Commission. I appreciate your answer. Unfortunately, I regret it very much that you do not give us any answer that would shed some light to the hope of the petitioners, men and women, and their children. Do you really think that the opt-out is the key answer here? Do you really think that? Do you really think we are so naive that we do not know that there are international conventions, just as, for example, the Hague Convention, Madam Chair? I know of one case or two cases where the Hague Convention has not been applied and the opt-out has actually put above the Hague Convention. Is that not European, or is that European? One big question for you, ladies and gentlemen. I have to say to my colleagues who think that we should force the Commission into a closer cooperation, I have to inform you, colleagues, that I have been in close contact with representatives of the Commission, in very close contact concerning several petitioners. Unfortunately, it was always the answer, here we can go until this point, but we cannot go any further because of the opt-out. I question very much whether the opt-out actually gives us the possibility to say no to the European Charter of Fundamental Rights, to say no to human rights, to say no to children's rights, to say no to any other European rights. We talk here, Madam Chair and colleagues and dear petitioners, about a European state, about a state which is actually part of the European Union. Yes, there is the opt-out, okay. But does this give the right to the state, to this particular state, to say no to the European laws and legislation, to say no to these mentioned European rights? Is this really the case, that we can accept such a state within the European Union? We are all surprised, politically speaking. We are all surprised that we have tendencies to the very right, tendencies to the very left. Margaret, you're laughing. I have observed your enjoyment here. But the problem is, if we cannot keep the rights in place, if we cannot keep and care for the petitioners and for our youngest citizens, do we really think that we keep the European Union together? Politically speaking, yes. We heard it today. One lady said she felt like Jews in World War II. The other one mentioned the Nazi regime. Another one. We heard these comments. Can we really allow this as politicians to have the rights of petitioners, of our citizens? And yes, even third country citizens are our citizens. They are living in the European Union. Can we allow these rights to be treated like whatever? Just like throw them in the dustbin. They cannot be heard. They cannot be given their child. Children, talking about children, no, not come on. Children have the right to be with their mother. The mother is the person who gives birth to the child. So I question here whether these women and fathers, in some cases, are being treated as just a person, or whether Denmark treats animals better than men and women. That's a big question, I think. The other point I want to point out is several things. We have problems with authorities in this case, because if you think of the documentation, we have issues with, especially in one or two cases present here today, where documents have been wrongly issued. There is one lady who can prove that she has the original document, and a few months, weeks, even years later, another document was issued in favor of the counterpart, in her case, of her ex-partner. In some cases, we have that there is the right to access of documentation, that this right is being denied. Is this really part of the opt-out, or is this part of our European rights? Or even evidence simply disappears in one case. I had once a phone call, a lady talking to me, a petitioner talking to me, saying, Madame Werthmann, what can I do? I have to call you, I have to inform you that documents simply disappeared. There is no proof anymore, there is no evidence anymore. Can we really allow this, dear Commission? And we have to ask all our member states whether they think that this is good, that whether this is European. I don't know. I have my doubts about this. Another point I want to raise, and I have to raise, is that our children actually become prisoners. We have heard it today. We have heard it as the delegation in Denmark. The children cannot leave the country anymore. Yes, there is a mother who wants to go on vacation with her child. We heard it today for just 2 days. In the other case, for 3 weeks. And she was simply denied this right to go on vacation with her children. She has to stay within Denmark. Do we really deprive our children of going abroad, of seeing something else? We have this problem already. So do we want this? Is this what we want for our children? And then the Ombudsman has been mentioned. Dear delegation members, dear colleagues, we have been to the Ombudsman office. The Ombudsman informed us of what his office can actually do. We heard it today, what the Ombudsman said to one of the petitioners. Do we really think that this is the right person to talk to if we have problems like this? And then allow me one comment, because a lot has been said and I don't want to repeat it, but we have to here clearly state that this is a systematic problem in Denmark. Yes, we have some problems in other countries too, of course. But here we have a systematic problem. This is just the peak of the iceberg. And I really mean it this way. It's just the peak of the iceberg. I have knowledge of several hundred cases. If I put my knowledge together with a few other people who have knowledge about several hundred cases, then we have about more than 1,000 cases. Is this normal? Is this European? Is this okay for a member state of the European Union? To come back to the political issue. Petitioners, I congratulate them all to their courage to speak to us, to bring this to the public, because I think it is very important that we, the European Union, are actually indeed informed about what is going on in such a high esteemed member state of the European Union. I have my doubts whether this appreciation can continue like that. Yes, I appreciate a guideline commission. I appreciate that. But what will it lead us to? We have to think about that too. There will probably very soon be no more binational couples anymore. Why? As I heard it a few days ago in my own country, I'm not going to marry another person than an Austrian because I don't want to run into these difficulties as I read on the website of the Parliament. Yeah, I understand the reaction of the young person. I fully understand it. I think we have to think about these things, what consequences it actually has. And yes, finally, we all agree that we have to bring it into plenary. I suggested that already 2 years ago. And everyone said, nah, this is just a single case. This is just an individual problem. We can see here that these problems are tragic, and these problems are by no means individual cases or single cases. And with this in mind, and with all the details that we have, and allow me one other thing. Dear Commission, there was one statement that was completely misrepresenting a case. It is the Weilharter case. You misrepresented her case in a complete different way. She was not the abductor. I have to mention this, dear Chair, because this statement, I read it and I read the correction that was sent out by our Chair Mazzoni. It has to say, if the Commission misunderstands the documents that is provided by the Parliament, that we get as the Parliament, we get them from the petitioners, real documents, real documentation, not just an opinion. I think this has to be questioned too. And finally, and by no means last but by no means least, allow me to say and to alert everyone that the members of the European Parliament can only talk on the basis of what has been provided to them and what they had been able to do on research. This is also very important because there are some people who question our credibility and our work. And we are by no means a court, but we are obliged by the duties of our work here, by the duties of a member of the Petitions Committee, that we support the petitioners in their view and to find a result and to hopefully give them back their children and give these mothers and fathers back their children. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.